Hello, and a very warm welcome to you all. You're tuned into The Logical Monk. This is our dedicated space to reverse engineer life itself. Here we take the profound, practical tenets of Buddhist philosophy and decode them through the rigorous lenses of science, technology, engineering, and modern management principles. Everything we explore here is verifiable. It is grounded entirely in logic, cause and effect, and empirical reality. Principles I've personally tested and applied over a quarter of a century working at the intersection of engineering and corporate leadership. This past Monday morning, did any of you wake up, stare blankly at the ceiling, and feel an absolute void in your chest? Your body refuses to move, your mind is a complete fog. Just the mere thought of the files piling up on your desk or the relentless pinging of the corporate group chat, it feels as though your life force has been entirely siphoned away. In today's vernacular, we label this condition burnout, don't we? And naturally, our first instinct is self-blame. We ask ourselves, have I become weak? Have I lost my passion? Am I simply getting lazy? But speaking as an engineer who has spent the better part of a lifetime dealing with large-scale, complex systems, I need to tell you something very clearly. You are not broken, and you are absolutely not weak. What you are experiencing right now, in the realm of computer engineering, we call it thermal throttling. Thermal throttling is a system's ultimate self-preservation mechanism. Picture the CPU in your computer or the microchip inside your mobile phone. When it is pushed to its absolute operational limit, perhaps running heavy graphics or complex computations continuously, the internal heat builds up exponentially. If the system were to allow that processor to keep running at maximum velocity, the internal components would quite literally melt. The machine would suffer a catastrophic, unrecoverable failure. Therefore, a fundamental algorithm hard-coded into the motherboard steps in and issues a definitive command: throttle down, right now. Your device begins to lag, the screen stutters, the entire operation slows to a deliberate crawl. Nature, in its infinite wisdom, has engineered the human mind and body with the exact same algorithm. That profound lack of motivation, the brain fog, the inability to process a single creative thought, it is not a bug in your life's programming, it is a safety feature. Your internal system is deliberately downgrading your operational capacity to prevent your mind and body from a total meltdown, to stop you from crashing into severe clinical depression or a serious physical collapse. So before you berate yourself for losing your fire, I suggest you pause and thank your biological operating system. It didn't fail you. It proactively cut the power to keep you alive. The fundamental problem isn't that you've run out of fire. The real question we need to ask is, why was your engine running at such a dangerously high temperature in the first place? And that is exactly what we shall debug in our next segment. The primary culprit behind our internal CPU experiencing thermal throttling is a practice well known in the technology sector: overclocking. For those unfamiliar, overclocking is the act of manually altering a system's parameters, forcing a microchip to run significantly faster and harder than its original factory specifications, all to squeeze out superior performance. In the realm of modern business and daily life, we are essentially being conditioned by society to keep our systems permanently overclocked. We are expected to secure top-tier performance reviews. We must shatter our KPIs. We need to be the flawless parent, the manager who solves every crisis, and curate a picture-perfect existence on social media. We are, quite literally, commanding our brains to run dozens of these demanding, overlapping expectation programs simultaneously.
In Buddhist philosophy, this relentless drive aligns perfectly with the concept of tanha, commonly translated as craving or thirst, and I assure you, this isn't merely about material greed. It encompasses bhava tanha, the deep-seated desire to become, to be perceived as brilliant, to be universally accepted. And conversely, it includes vibhava tanha, the intense aversion to failure or criticism. In engineering terms, these psychological drives generate a staggering amount of cognitive friction.
When the wheel of our ambition spins at these hyper-elevated speeds, breaching our design limits, the lost energy is converted directly into heat. We might feel a momentary rush of adrenaline when a project succeeds, but make no mistake, the thermal graph is silently, dangerously spiking. You are essentially borrowing tomorrow's biological resources to burn them today. Now, you might protest, but I rest on the weekends. Why hasn't my engine cooled down? The stark reality is that binge-watching a television series or mindlessly scrolling through your phone is not putting the machine to sleep. It is merely switching application windows. The background processes in your mind, the ones labeled anxiety and pressure, are still running at 100% capacity. So why has our internal cooling system failed us so completely? We will examine its structural engineering in Part 3. The most powerful machine on Earth is entirely useless if its cooling system fails. In a computer, we rely on a component known as a heat sink, a structured array of metal fins and a fan, meticulously designed to draw thermal energy away from the processor and dissipate it into the air. In the human operating system, our spiritual heat sink, our internal cooling mechanism, is what we call mindfulness and stillness. Now, the root cause for the majority of people experiencing burnout is not actually that they are working too hard. I assure you, engineers of my generation frequently pulled all-nighters. We worked for 3 days and 2 nights straight on mere fumes. Yet, why was clinical burnout far less prevalent back then? Because in those days, the moment you stepped out of the office, the work ceased. The connection was physically severed. Your mental heat sink was allowed to do its job and fully dissipate the accumulated stress. Today, however, the relentless dust of the information age has completely clogged our cooling fans. Work emails pinging at 11 at night, urgent messages from the boss on a Sunday morning, the incessant avalanche of global news. We pack the thermal load from the office into our bags, carry it home, and leave it running on our beds and at our dining tables. Imagine taking a laptop that is actively running intensive software, closing the lid without shutting it down, and stuffing it into a tightly zipped rucksack. It isn't resting, it is baking itself to death. And that, my friends, is precisely what you are doing to your own brain.
True rest in the engineering of life requires a complete dropping of the load. In Buddhist practice, this is called samatha, the cultivation of tranquility, the deliberate halting of the cognitive machinery. You don't need to ordain as a monk or retreat to a deep forest to achieve this. You simply need to grant yourself permission to solve absolutely nothing for 15 to 30 minutes a day. Leave your mobile phone in entirely another room. Sit and observe your own breathing. Listen to the rustling of the leaves. Or simply experience the genuine taste of your morning coffee, completely uninterrupted. Pulling yourself back to the present moment is the exact equivalent of blowing the dust out of your cooling fan. It opens the vents, allowing the mind to release its pressurized heat. And once that thermal energy is properly vented, the lagging, the freezing, the thermal throttling will naturally begin to resolve itself.
Now that our engine has begun to cool down,
how do we prevent it from overheating and crashing all over again? The answer lies in a complete system recalibration. In business administration and structural engineering, we rely heavily on the concept of the optimum point, or the optimal operating range. You see, no machine is designed to run at 100% capacity indefinitely. The point at which a system is most durable, most energy efficient, and yields the highest return on investment is typically engineered to sit at around 70 to 80% of its maximum output. In Buddhist philosophy, this is the precise definition of Majjhima Patipada, or the middle way. Historically, you may have programmed your life's algorithm with lines of code that dictate, "I must be absolutely perfect," or "I must carry this entire load alone." Today, you need to go in and rewrite that specific line of code. Change it to, "I will do my absolute best within the sustainable parameters of my system." You must learn to execute the delegate function. Relinquish the desperate grip on perfection. Accept that in some instances, an 80% is a passing grade. In a computer network, if a single server is forced to bear the entire load, the system crashes. The load must be distributed across other nodes in the network. Your life operates on the exact same architecture. If a responsibility falls outside your direct remit, you must have the courage to decline it or simply let it go. There is one final parameter we must adjust, the principle of upekkha, or equanimity. Now, equanimity does not mean apathy or indifference. From an engineer's perspective, it translates to detached involvement. We execute the task to the very best of our logical and rational abilities, but we do not hardwire our ego or our personal expectations tightly to the final output. If the project succeeds, we take immense pride in the craftsmanship. If the board is unimpressed or the client rejects it, we simply process that data as feedback to optimize the system for the next iteration. We do not use it as a weapon to attack our own CPU. Modifying your internal algorithm in this way will instantly reduce the psychological friction in your life by more than half. And so we arrive at our final segment, the ultimate resolution to the problem of burnout. If you are listening to this today feeling entirely depleted, so thoroughly exhausted that you simply cannot take another step forward, I need you to completely reframe your perspective. This thermal throttling you are experiencing is not a defeat. It is, in fact, the most rigorous, uncompromising teacher nature could possibly send you. It has arrived to inform you that your current life architecture is fundamentally unsustainable. It is telling you that it is time for a system upgrade. You see, a brilliant engineer isn't the one who builds a machine to run at blistering speeds with absolute disregard for the consequences. A true master engineer constructs a system that runs fast enough whilst dissipating heat well enough to ensure it operates with absolute stability over the long haul without suffering a catastrophic failure mid-flight. By all means, return to your work tomorrow and give it your absolute best, but do not forget to install a massive, high-capacity heat sink within your mind. Grant yourself the permission to truly power down. Allow yourself the bandwidth to find joy in the micro-moments. And above all, give yourself the permission to be imperfect. Always remember this. Multi-million-pound industrial machinery is deliberately engineered with a standby mode and a state-of-the-art cooling system. How much more, then, does your own mind and body, the most extraordinarily complex and invaluable system on Earth, require exactly the same care? Make it a habit
to clean out the heat sink of your heart. Drop the heavy load of your expectations. You will quickly discover that moving forward at a slower yet highly stable velocity will take you infinitely further than keeping your foot flat on the accelerator until the engine destroys itself.
So, for today, unplug the hardware, step away from the screen. May you maintain the perfect thermal equilibrium in your daily life. May your internal systems run with absolute stability, and may you find genuine joy in every single line of the life code you write for yourself. Until we meet again in the next episode of The Logical Monk, I have been your host, Gop CM, the engineer of the Karma algorithm. Goodbye.